Good evening, and welcome to Three Mans, $5. I'm your host, Jason Mink, and thank you for joining us on the internet's most copacetic action figure review show. Let's get right into it. Right off the bat, like I said, I am Jason Mink. In the past, I've written for thefoosh.com. I talked about action figures for those guys for a few years. You may have seen my columns. You may have seen my photographs. Later on, I moved on. I founded the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics Network. We have our YouTube channel. We have our Facebook group. And, I usually do a Having a Drink with Mink show. And I talk about MEGOs an awful lot on there. Whenever action figures happen to come across my desk, I figured, what the heck, I'll throw my hat in the ring and I'll do my own little action figure thing. So, here we are. Like I said, this is the internet's most copacetic action figure review show. I hope you have a nice beverage on hand. I know I do. And I gotta say, right off the bat, I am so happy. If you've watched the channel in the past, you know that this chair was squeaking like a bastard. But thank you to the good folks at WD-40 for this miracle in a can. I can't tell you, all the little squeaks and squonks in your life, well, add a little bit of WD-40 to them and who knows, it may just be the remedy that you're looking for. Or liquor. You could try that too. I am, as always, joined by my co-host. This is Darren. He's sitting in the captain's seat. He's joined by Scotty and the Gorn. We're talking Star Trek today on the inaugural episode of Three Mans, $5. What's up with that title, you may ask? Well, my good friend Darren, he's no longer with us. He's shopping for action figures at that great flea market in the sky. Cheers, my friend. We had gone to West Virginia a few years back, a real dicey little flea market out in the middle of nowhere, and it was up on a hillside, just a semicircle of rusty trucks and people in suspenders with no undershirts, if you know what I mean. A lot of chafing going on up there, but we walked around and it was, not a bad little flea market for all that. We'd come in from Pittsburgh and we'd certainly seen worse, but we came across a fellow who had some tables and they were full of action figures. There was lots of 1980s stuff on there, some more contemporary 1990s, and a few sort of Marvel Legends era things. That was what I wrote about for thefoosh.com. So, I was on the hunt for more contemporary things, but always had my eye open for off-the-wall stuff, and, none of the stuff on the table was priced. So I asked the guy, hey, what's the story? How much for the action figures? And, this young gentleman, we'll call him a son of the soil, if you will, he stroked his whiskery chin and sort of looked off into the distance and said, I can do 3 mans for $5. And it was just then that my friend Darren walked up and he was like, what's that? 3 mans for $5. Darren's like, 3 mans for $5? Starts nudging me. Hey, how many mans can I get for 6? If I gave you 20, can I get, 15 mans? And just started ribbing the guy, confusing him to no end. A dicey proposition once again, because we're out in the middle of nowhere. But as it was, I did get 3 mans for $5, and those are long gone, but the sentiment lives on. This Darren action figure is here with me now to keep that vibe going, so let's get right to it without any more of my balloon juice. Cheers. What do we have on the docket? Like I said, we're talking Star Trek. We have the new MEGO Mr. Scott and the Salt Vampire. Now, these figures are pretty interesting as far as it goes. Neither one of these are brand new as far as it goes. when MEGO came back in 2018, they started reissuing the Star Trek figures that they had the license for way back in the day, and right off the bat, they had used some old head sculpts. We had gotten Kirk, Spock, and later on, they started giving us these new head sculpts. And so it took a while, but we finally got to Scotty right here. And here is let's go to try and hold these like a normal human being. Here, that's a little bit better. And then we have the salt vampire right here. Now, apparently, this figure was released like 10, 11 years ago by MCE Toys back in the day, and MEGO has been basically picking up stuff that they had produced a decade previous and reissuing it, and hit or miss. It's certainly nice to get these figures if you missed out the first time. I know I did. So we're going to take a look right now, right off the bat. These are on the new MEGO cards, the Star Trek branded card, and you got a little Captain Kirk up there in the corner, the Star Trek chevron, and a very tiny little logo. A lot of people have said, hey, you know what, these cards, they could look a lot better, but apparently it's some sort of licensing issue that MEGO has with these companies, and they're very adamant about presenting things in just such a way. However, if you flip it around in the back, you do get this wonderful image. Yes, this would have looked much cooler on the front of the package for sure, especially if they'd gone with like a black Starscape background. But hey, like I said, I'm just happy to get the figure, and we're certainly not here to talk about the packaging because being the copacetic channel that we are, well, we're not going to keep these things in the package. We're going to crack them open, we're going to take a look, and we're going to see just how they compare to the classic MEGOs of yesterday. We have Mr. Scott to represent Mr. Scott. And, what do you have there, Mr. Scott? He's got a little bottle. What is that you're drinking? It's green. It sure is. Put you right there. Oh, Darren, what are you doing there, buddy? He's apparently been drinking out of Mr. Scott's bottle. And then we have the Gorn to represent the spooky alien side of the Star Trek world. So we're going to crack these guys open, and we'll be right back. Let's do a cool phaser-style beam out, Larry. All right, and here we are. We're going to start with Mr. Scott. Put the salt vampire down. Feel kind of bad. I should have brought some tequila and lime for the salt vampire. What a terrible host I am. Okay, so here's Mr. Scott on the new MEGO body, and we're going to compare him to the old-style Mr. Scott right here. Now, as you can see, right off the bat, it's a brand new head sculpt. Now, some folks have been critical of this head sculpt. They've said that it kind of looks like a wooden dummy. And there could be something to be said for that. It's very severe, as far as a MEGO head sculpt goes. When you look at this Mr. Scott, well, apparently he's in the dew of youth compared to this guy, but who knows, maybe he's been drinking what's in this green bottle right here. But as far as it goes, put him down for the moment. This Mr. Scott features the classic phaser, then we have the communicator and a tricorder. He has a printed-on chevron as opposed to Mr. Scott's plastic one. Ordinarily, this plastic would have foil over top of it, but I am not a rich man and does have a tendency to cost a little more. Maybe someday I'll attempt to do a resto on that, but I don't mind so much because I think as a kid, the foil came off pretty quickly. But this is a great solution to that particular problem, is printing that right on there. I know that some folks have frowned upon that, but I don't think it's so bad. Following that lead, we have printed on emblems on the gloves here. Ordinarily, this was a raised element, and I gotta say I do like that a little more on the classic Mr. Scott. But that said, it is a little more doll-like, when it comes right down to it. And that's the thing about these new Migos, is you might be on the fence because you have a more realistic head sculpt. You have more sort of consistent appliques on the costumes and stuff like that, and you might feel like, gosh, you're torn. I have a tendency to come down, as far as MEGO goes, on the side of the softer detail and the less detailed costumes, ultimately because that's what a MEGO was when I was growing up. But new MEGO has certainly proven me wrong. Their Nosferatu is phenomenal, and, if they'd listened to me, it wouldn't be half as cool, so hey. So if you can't pick up a classic Mr. Scott, this guy is a pretty solid representation. He's got all the standard MEGO articulation. If you get the version that was sold at Target, you'll get the nice blue standard style accessories. Now, I had picked up a couple of these guys from Zolo's World to use as army builders. I popped their heads off. Larry, can we get a picture of my army builders? And those guys had black accessories. And, once again, going back to that classic, it's just like, do you want the way Migos looked, or do you want the way they could look if they were more realistic? And, once again, it's a fine line. But if I'm going to display them all together, I want the consistency, absolutely. As far as the uniform goes, Migos' earlier collars, many folks have said this, I'll reiterate, were much tighter and much cleaner looking, far more military. The thing that's going on here, this almost looks like something that I would make out of craft store felt. I think that MEGO could certainly improve that. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say that Mr. Scott here is definitely a solid 7.5. And to prove that point, I'm going to stick him in Jaws' mouth. It's all about fun. You know what I'm saying? Toys should be fun. Keep it copacetic, folks. Next up, we're going to look at the Salt Vampire, a.k.a. Footy Pajama Man. Now, I know that there are limitations, and, I was just advocating for the basic nature of Migos, but this guy may have taken it just a little too far. Now, if you'll recall, Larry, can we get a picture of the classic Salt Vampire up on the screen there? The classic Salt Vampire was very visceral looking, very intense. As a kid, I actually had a little Ballantine paperback book, and it had a picture of the Salt Vampire on it. It was like a high contrast, black and white, almost looked like a Xerox copy. But man, that face burned itself into my mind. And this is a decent enough likeness. The thing about the image that I had seen was the Salt Vampire was on the ground after it had been defeated, and it had this look of intense, compassion in its eyes, and that was the contrast between its horrific appearance. Here it's a little more balanced and almost kind of benevolent, just like you walked in and it was sitting there playing video games on its couch. It's like, yeah, go grab a beer out of the fridge, bro. But it's decent. You know what I mean? It's definitely a very good likeness for sure. The hands are awesome. Very, very cool to get these. And they can suck on a suck your salt out. You know what I mean? They work on regular-sized fellows like me, as well as MEGO-sized fellows like Mr. Scott. Ooh, he's drunk now. But like I said, Footy Pajama Man, the one-piece suit is definitely like a fuzzy, almost like a bunny suit, if you will. Oh, I had created a Bizarro custom a few years back for a Just Bruce strip that I did for the Whoosh, and this very, very much reminds me of that. So, it's a fine line. The white it just might be a little too much, to be honest with you, because I have a feeling this thing is going to get dirty in my collection. I am not putting it in a Deltoff cabinet, a nice clear, airtight thing. This is going to be out in the environment where the rock and roll happens, the verisimilitude, it's all around. And so I don't even really know how white this thing would stay. So I'm seriously thinking about giving it a little bit of a dye job in the future and trying to make it match a little bit closer to the way the character appeared in the Star Trek TV show, because it certainly wasn't wearing a white pajama onesie, as far as I remember. Anyway, but hey, there we go. Woo! All right. Well, as far as it goes, how would I rate this guy? I don't know. I'd give him 7 out of 10. Certainly not bad. It's no Gorn. That's right. But I've rattled on enough. Thank you for joining us on this introductory edition of Three Mans, $5. I'm not sure when we'll do it again, but we most certainly will. For all of us at the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics Network, I'm Jason Mink. Cheers.
Mm-hmm.